So far, we've visited a clay artist and a painter. Now we're moving on to an artist who resides somewhere in between. Hilary Hanson Bruel is an encaustic painter, which is a form that uses pigment mixed with beeswax and demar resin. It's a tricky process. While you must heat the beeswax, you can't bring the temperature up too much because the fumes can be toxic. Therefore, proper ventilation is key. If that wasn't hard enough, Hilary also works within the confines of stripes and bands, meticulously crafting straight lines. Her attention to detail is enviable, but it's her commitment to the process and optimistic attitude that struck me most. In art and life, it's all about enjoying the journey for Hilary. Let's go and enjoy it with her for our last feature.
So when I'm making art, for me, the focus is usually on the process, especially with encaustic. There are all these happy accidents that happen, and you need to be able to sort of embrace those and follow them. So I'm Hilary Hanson Bruel, and I am a mixed media artist. I work primarily with encaustic paint. I was the artsy kid. I always had a pad going, and I would draw ads from magazines, so I would practice faces and drawing bodies, and then I just kept with it. I was an artist, and then I also really loved math and computers. So I think that's part of the way I ended up in design, and then I learned how to do web design. My creative needs were met, and so I stopped painting, basically, and just spent the next 7 years in New York City as a graphic designer, and then I moved up to Boston and was working as a graphic designer until my first child was born. When my younger child finally got to elementary school, a friend of mine and I, we decided that we would celebrate by taking an art class together. And basically, we signed up for this class called Encaustic Collage. It turned out it wasn't really about collage, it was about painting. And I didn't realize what encaustic was until I got into this class, and I fell in love with it right away. It was painting, but it was also kind of sculptural. It was kind of like working with clay, and then you could embed things into it. And so I was just hooked from that moment on. The art background I had informed my design work when I was working primarily as a graphic designer, and now that I've come back to painting, I absolutely see how my design work informs the painting. First, I announced to my whole family, I'm painting today. And then everybody scatters, because then I turn on my music and I kind of take over the first floor of the house. The beginning of an encaustic painting is a little frustrating in a way because there's not a lot there to work with. You got to build up some wax so that you then have things to play with, because part of the fun is scraping down, melting, seeing what comes up through the various layers. I work in bands and stripes. I've created these constraints for myself where what I have to work with is a variation in thickness of the bands, colors, the textures. I'm still giving myself a pretty rigid framework to work with it. The pure abstracts, whatever people get out of them, I'm happy with. And that's why I actually hate coming up with titles for my paintings, because that automatically limits what people might see in the piece when I give it a title. With abstract art, you want everybody to have sort of their own response to it. That's part of the reason why I started working abstract, was that I realized I could have all the enjoyment of the creation without having to worry about the meaning so much. So it was really very much about just the process of creating the paintings. For me, the important thing is making art, and I feel like everybody should make art, you know, and it always makes me sad when people say, but I'm not good. It's like, it doesn't matter about being good, it's about this. I just feel like we need to be making things and creating things. And especially these days when it's like everything, you know, there's so much, you know, on the phone or on the computer or looking but not making. That's the part of art that's important to me, is the process and the creation. And then again, for other people, it's what they're communicating. But for me, it's much more about the making of it. That's what I need to do. I absolutely do think that my approach to art is sort of my approach to life. If you had asked me when I was 25, like, what's your life gonna be like? I'm in a very different place in some ways than I thought I would be, but I wouldn't trade any of it. So I think that, yes, probably my approach to art is very much my approach to life, which is, let's see what happens. Make the best out of whatever happens, you know?